first matter of business is the minutes of the March 29th meeting.
Suggest some changes on the viewing budget.
Okay.
I don't think I mentioned little vision meeting.
No vision?
No. I'm saying that there is a vision.
Okay.
It's a positive, it's not.
Okay.
So I want to straight.
Misinterpreted.
I'd like to say positive vision by the committee.
Okay. All right.
Because that's
Sorry about that.
yeah, no trouble. Sometimes I don't speak.
Any other corrections or additions? Motion to approve as correct.
Second.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you. We have received no direct communications. People talk to us once in a while, but we haven't gotten anything on paper, so there's none to report. And so we can move to the discussion of some of the budget requests, and we had listed the school budget. I gather that's why there's quite a few participants here. We'll save any public input until the number 9 on the agenda, in case anybody needs an agenda. There's one here. So you might bring up you might bring up the discussion, further discussion of the school budget that we had participated in on March 29th. And remembering that our participation in the budget is really on a gross basis. We're not on a line-by-line basis. We just say either we accept the proposed budget, which at the last hour anyway was $6,939,894. And Tom, you're supposed to have a meeting tomorrow, right? To do any further.
We have our regularly scheduled meeting tomorrow night, although
Yeah.
we did meet the night after we met with you on the 30th. And we did vote again on the budget, and there were no changes.
No changes to it. And at that time, was there any further discussion about the capital question?
No, we really didn't get into the capital issue. I know you have concerns about how we're going to earmark the money that we've set aside,
Yeah.
which I think we're going to work on that. As I said to you at the meeting, I don't think that's anything we're going to have to over the next couple of weeks. You're talking about a building that has been for all intents and purposes fairly expensive renovation, so, you know, maybe we can put that in our capital budget, that door.
New front door.
You know, I mean, right now, if we had included a line item in our budget for capital improvements, that was a pretty sizable number. You know, before we did that, I would say, hey, this is what we're looking to spend this money on. All we did right now is to just earmark that money, not for any specific, you know,
We understand.
specific work.
That, as of June 30th, 2015, there's about 250,000 of accumulated reserve.
There was 263,000. We gave the 40,000 back to the town for the field, which is at 223. You know, and we earmarked the $200,000 for special ed funds, and then for the, you know, capital improvement. So, I mean, I guess, yes, there's 223,000 in there, but that's not how we're viewing it. That money that we've set aside has been set aside for those two purposes. So, I mean, that's how we're viewing it. But yes, we do have a $223,000.
It's an unrestricted balance. And that alone seemed, at least for 16, and I haven't talked with John recently, but the last time I did talk with him, he said he was expecting about a break even
Yeah.
for 16.
Well, as you know, I'm the representative of this board and the school committee. And my recommendation is going to be a flat recommendation for this year. It's very generous to have spent $40,000 in the budget for the fields. You have some further opportunities for consolidation in grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not trying to sink the budget, but I think with all the surpluses that you have, the funding should be flat for this year. And that's my recommendation for this board.
I'm gonna have to kindly disagree with that. The school committee and the superintendent, they're the ones that set the class numbers, and I'm no education expert. You know, I don't know how many kids should be in a class or how many teachers there should be, but, you know, I trust their judgment on what the numbers should be, and if that's what they request, then I don't think it's up to us to cut the school budget just because we heard from some members of the community that they think that, there are too little kids in a class. That's not my area of expertise. I don't think any of us are, education experts, and, we shouldn't really call it an opportunity to consolidate, because it's not an opportunity. It's, this is our only chance to educate these kids, and we can't screw it up, so.
I respect you.
I'll back what Craig said. You've got 220,000 left over right now, roughly. The increase was 88,000 over last year. I think, what you don't know special ed, I understand that. You don't have any numbers there. You don't really have a capital plan yet together. So I think cutting the 88,000, so you're flat, you still have that 220 to spread out. Maybe you only have 50,000 to start seeding your capital plan with, but it's a start. I mean, I would have felt a lot better, because Craig and I were at a meeting and we asked for a capital plan. And that plan, that was over a month, 5 weeks ago at least. Show us something where you want to do it, instead of just putting a line in there, capital. Because that, like I said before, I said it last week, the town doesn't do it that way. It takes time, and things get moved around, the 5-year capital plan. It's not set in stone, but something else breaks, it goes from this year to that year. And that's what you do, you slowly seed it. But, I was a little thrown back at 263,000 left over. That was a lot. It's a lot, I think. So,
I just want to commend you for going in the direction of setting up a capital plan.
Right.
Personally, I think that special ed is so invariable that it should be more or less a pay-as-you-go, and I absolutely fight to the death to make sure that gets funded properly. But, so I commend you on the capital plan, but my recommendation is still flat.
Right. Is there any other comments?
Excuse me, could you
This
allow
is not-
some public comment? I'm asking the chair, is it possible to have some public comment now before a vote is made on the preliminary budget?
Yeah, you could if you'd like.
Thank you.
I don't want to take up all night with this
Oh, no.
one issue, but
I won't.
we've
It'll
got
be
other
very brief.
things to do. But please rise and state who you are.
My name is Ellen Kane, and I served on the school committee for 6 years. And I just would like to talk a little bit about the terms that I've heard associated with the unexpended funds, which were $263,000 at one time. So what I hear now is that they're no longer 263, they're closer to 223, is that right, minus 40,000? And, you know, someone said it was money that was left over. And what I have heard is that it isn't money that's left over. In fact, it's money that's set aside for contingencies that cannot be anticipated just yet. And I know from my service, which was 10 years ago, a special ed tuition out of district could cost, it used to cost maybe 40. It's probably 50, 60,000.
62.
62,000 today. So that would be one. That would be one. If one student's needs changed or a student moved in that needed that. And then for capital expenditure, what do you call it? A
Just capital planning.
capital plan. I had heard that the budget committee asked for it for about a month ago, but it would seem to me that the school committee is extremely busy at present when I read the newspaper about a well, and there's some concern about the budget and about other matters. So if in fact they're saying they're happy to try to supply you with that, though they couldn't do it for today, and maybe the superintendent would like to speak about why they think the increase that they're requesting is important. But I do think that unexpended funds, sometimes called a slush fund, they're sometimes called a lot of things. But in fact, I think it's fiscally responsible to have some money set aside for those things that very often do come up, and without which you'd be in big trouble if you didn't have some money set aside.
Well, we're still leaving you with money. There's still more than money there. It's how you allocate. I mean, if you're flat, and you wanted 88,000 more in this budget, you still have that 220 minus the 88. So you still got a good chunk of change.
Well,
And as Craig said, if for some reason we have special ed needs, the kids that come in, we'll go to bat for you with the town, whatever you have to do. We have to have a special financial town meeting to take care of those funds, we'll do it.
yeah, but that would be a very difficult thing when it comes to special ed, because you wouldn't want to say publicly in a tiny town that we need another $60,000 because there's a student that needs special ed, because in a small town it would become quite obvious who that person was, and that would be something that the school would have to avoid because of ethics that they have about confidentiality.
Right, but right now, you're still gonna have 100+ thousand, and how you spend it, that's the student.
I don't want to take up, but maybe somebody else
Thank you.
wants to speak.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
My name is Tim Brown, I live on Old
Would
Farm
you
Road.
stand, please? And
My name is Tim Brown, I live on Old Farm Road. What does consolidation of grades 1 through 5 mean?
It's not, what I'm saying is that if you look at the contract, how many students can be in a classroom,
24.
okay, and you look at the actual enrollment coming up, there are opportunities for reducing headcount. And it's not, I'm not pleased to say that, I'm not happy about it, but those are facts.
Those are facts, but none of us would flat fund our household budgets, right? We wouldn't expect,
What
none
we're
of us would
saying, what
expect
we're
that we
saying
go
is you
for
have
next
enough
year.
reserves as it stands
But as
to
Ellen just
fund for
said,
next year.
as Ellen just said, what if there is something that happens? We have nothing for contingency.
But you
You
do.
don't, no.
You
You
do.
do, you do.
But what if something big happens? What if there's a major capital improvement that needs to be done? Or a major capital expenditure that needs to happen?
That's why we've asked for a plan. We've asked for a plan. We don't have a plan. That's what we need. We wanted that because we don't want, nobody can bind this school committee. Next school committee can't bind the last school committee. So what happens is, if it's a line in the budget and it says, this capital, $100,000, you people, if something else comes up, special or something like that, you can take that. I mean, whereas if you have a plan, the plan is, it's there, it's movable, but we know every year what money we're putting aside for different projects. And that's all we want for the school.
And we think it's a good thing that you're doing that. I'm totally support.
Don?
I'll make it quick, Bob. Obviously, it's very difficult to have a discussion about budgets. You all aren't supposed to tell us where we're supposed to cut from. Having said that, as you look through it, a lot of times it's easy to put your finger on certain line items where you think we're heavy, whether it be Portsmouth students, books, but when you start getting into the issue about what, how many staff members you're going to have, or full-time equivalents, which you've indicated that that's where you think we're high, and where we, call them opportunities, call them what you will, there's no question in my mind that you've put your cards on the table and said that we think that your staffing's too high. And I don't agree with the thought that you all, should be making that decision. You are a budget committee, you're not a school committee.
But that's it, it's not our
So-
decision, we're just pointing something.
I understand that you make a recommendation to the town, and, it'll play out, it'll be up to the voters. It'll be up to the voters, no question. You get back to the question of special education students and the numbers, that Mrs. Canane was stating are correct. And we actually got notified today that we could have an additional student next year that is not in our budget. So where's that going to come from? It's going to come from our surplus, unrestricted funds, which we set aside for. So, I'm glad that we did what we did, and I'm glad that we have it. The other $100,000 that we've set aside, I do want to make sure, and I'll look into how we as a school can set aside that money without having future school committees, do something else with it. So, so we don't have as much surplus as you think we have. We're coming down from 1.3 million 3 years ago down to 200,000. Now, although it's not on paper, it's a sort of an unwritten rule, but the idea and notion that we have a couple $100,000 in our unrestricted surplus was deemed acceptable. And I think we're right around where we're supposed to be. So I don't agree with the notion that we're high. And in terms of where we're at with our personnel in the lower grades, I do think it's disruptive, not having continuity with the teachers in certain classes. It doesn't work. And unfortunately, until we really bottom out on this enrollment, where it starts coming in at the numbers, we've been consistent over the past several years. Even though we've had classes with 20, 21, we've been consistent in keeping those with 2 teachers per grade. I've always thought that once we get down, we had kindergarten come in at 14 last year. It increased a little bit during the course of the year. When that starts happening, okay, because it is going to happen. You look at the birth rates, it's going to happen. We're going to have 14, 15 kids per grade. When that happens, it's an open and shut case in my mind. But right now, we're not at that point. And I think, trying to be as least disruptive as possible, moving teachers around, I think that's the best way to go. Thanks.
Sir?
Hi, how are you? My name is Brooks Hagan. I'm a professor at the Rhode Island School of Design, so I have some experience in education. I wanted to make 3 points which seem relevant. First is, as an educator, I firmly believe in putting these sort of decisions on the ground, where I think that the faculty and their interaction with students, they really do know best what the needs of the school are. I also have a question which perhaps you can't answer, but if you were to withhold the $88,000, to what end is my question. I mean, to put it into the budget for the school would mean that it's there if it was needed. To not put it in would mean that we'd be in a situation such as Ellen described, which is, you know, to publicly come to the school, to the town budget committee and make a request, which could be politically quite difficult. So I think there is prudency to transferring these funds, and then if the fiscal management is as responsible as it has been, to recover them in a year. So, my thoughts.
Thank you.
I just have a question. Do you guys have an idea of where you want the surplus to be, or what it should be at? I mean, do you have an ideal surplus number?
I don't until I see a plan.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's the same way we started with the town. We started coming up with a 5-year capital plan. I mean, way back.
And I completely agree. I think, you know, they should have a capital plan. I mean, looking at the towns, it's so well, you know, explained, and they can move things around from year to year pretty easily, and it's, you know, it's all right there. It's so easy. But, you know, I don't think we should start punishing them right now and punishing the kids just because they haven't given us a plan yet. And you know, Tom is a guy, you know, man of his word. I think he'll.
I don't think we're
What do you mean?
punishing, I don't think we're punishing the kids. I don't think we're punishing them right now. And the fact that they still have money left over. They didn't have that this winter. Okay, but they had 263 left over. It was the school committee's decision to spend 40 on recreation. Okay, so they get 220 left over.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not telling them how to spend it. That's their money. That's their money. Decide
Yeah.
how.
Well, and he just told you that they're putting 200, you know, aside for capital, and or 100 for capital, or 100 for.
That's their general.
Special education.
Yeah, that's right.
If I could just,
So that leaves 23,000 left over.
Yeah. But why does the capital, when you don't have a plan yet, have to be seated at 100,000?
Bob, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't know when you asked me 5 weeks ago for a capital plan. This is the first time.
I didn't ask for a capital plan. Craig and I met with Dr. Powers and John McNamee.
Okay, so it wasn't presented to the
That's
school
when it was
committee.
discussed first initially.
All right.
We said we want to see that
The
plan.
surplus and our operating budget are mutually exclusive in my mind. What we have in our surplus shouldn't play into how you know, what your thoughts are on what we provide for our budget. We're never gonna take our budget, unless we have to, our surplus, and use it on reoccurring operating costs. It's just not gonna happen. So, I don't know how, is it because we have the surplus that you think our increase is high? I'm I'm seeing a connection between the two, and I don't think that there should be.
No, there isn't. There isn't in my mind, there isn't. I mean, I'd like to, like I said it before, I'd like to see a capital plan. That's all.
Okay, but I don't know how that ties into the $85,000 increase that
Do
you're
you
talking about.
expect, Tom, do you expect to have any
We have,
semblance of a plan within the next,
when you take capital
Couple of
expense,
years.
when you say a capital plan, just in terms of the work, and maybe I'm not understanding what is necessarily contained within that. I'm looking at our building, our facility, in terms of the money that we're going to spend on the facility. Am I not understanding that that's what a capital plan would include? Or is there more contained within there?
That's my copy.
this is trying to put in an extra one.
That's the town's capital plan right now.
So, you know, we've got a lot of different things, replace windows, paint,
Right.
insulate, that type of thing. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I have not given a thought to what needs to be done in that school, because we just finished 4 years of coming off a pretty extensive renovation. So, you know, my mind has not been on, oh my gosh, what did we do that we have to do? You know, it will get there, and I think that there are some things, but by and large, most of the major issues within that school have been replaced. We're talking about doing a door here, maybe some windows over here, although all the windows that were over there were overhauled as much as they could be. So I mean, I have a good idea as to what was done in that school, more so than I think you might.
Oh, a lot more.
All right, so in terms of you wanting a capital plan from us, wondering what are we gonna do over the next 5 years with the school? Not a whole lot. So, but I think that we can work towards it, and I think, you know, like I said, it's not gonna happen over the next few weeks. You're not gonna have anything from us by the time you go to the financial town meeting saying, look, this is what we're gonna put the $100,000 to. Gotta sit down with Bill Moore. And, you know, and I think we can come up with something fairly quickly, but, you know, I don't think that it's the end-all be-all. The $100,000 we set aside is not a line item in our budget. We're not asking you for money to do any work down there. What we've done is we're trying to do what wasn't done over the past 25 years and set aside money to do some of the things that are gonna be coming up down the road. So that will have to be developed, but I don't think that it's the important thing on the table right now in my mind.
Well,
Maybe we see
let
things different.
Tom know, the audited financial statements indicate that this is an unrestricted fund. Now, the unrestricted funds which have been developed are really to cover what this gentleman was saying. What do you do when you get some unexpected operating commitment? Well, that's why you have a surplus. It's not to cover specific items necessarily, but just as the town has unrestricted surplus and it needs it for unexpected events, just in the same way that the school has built it up, almost immediately again, there was a substantial buildup anticipating the improvements on the school, but then that went to zero, but now it's begun to build up again. And we acknowledge that you should have some. We're not saying you should just be flat zero, but we assume that the operating account, the budget that you've requested for 17 takes into account to some degree unanticipated amounts. I mean, I'm sure John didn't cut it to the last thin slice. I'm sure that there's some other question marks there, some cushions, because I know he does a good job, and that's what he should be doing. So I don't think that to say, as you've indicated, that suppose something terrible happens, some huge disaster, that's a much different issue than 20,000 or 40,000 that's needed. That comes out of the surplus. That's what the surplus is for, to cover those kinds of things. But in fact, presumably a budget that is the same as this past year would accommodate some of the uncertainties as well.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm with you, I'm with you.
That's maybe a different point of view,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I mean,
one that expects that the budgeting process accommodates some of those uncertainties.
yeah, I mean, history has shown, I think we all know, that every year there has been some measure of surplus. Some years it's been higher than others, and, you know, I mean, how, I wasn't a part of it, how we got so high at one point is beyond me, but, you know, if we get to the end of this year, and I'm speaking for myself, something happens and, you know, John's estimates are off, and we have an extra couple $100,000 sitting there, I don't think we should be sitting on that. You know, so that's my mindset. Right now, I don't think we're at a point where we're being obnoxious, you know, for lack of a better word. You know, so, but I understand what you're saying, and it's the nature of the beast and how this is all laid out. Give you a budget March 1st, and we'll really find out where you're at sometime at the end of the year. So,
But it's an operating plan as well.
yeah.
It's the best estimate that your employees have come up with.
Well, you know, you all make the recommendation you feel you need to make, and it's gonna come before the voters anyway, and they'll have the last word, so. Right? Steve?
Chairman?
Yes.
Dr. Carr, I'm the
Would you
superintendent.
rise, please? Thank
Dr.
you.
Carr, the superintendent at the moment. So, just to give you just a quick sense of how quick things can change, I got an email yesterday from the regional special ed program saying, you know, that there's a child who is now supposedly Little Compton, has a parent in Little Compton who's the guardian, and this child's moving out of a group home that's over in Charahoe, and they're going to be going to a residential placement. And that we're potentially going to be on the hook for $62,000. That's $62,000 that was not on the books yesterday, that may be on the books tomorrow,
Right.
that I'm going to investigate to see whether in fact DCOAF is right or wrong. But if they're right, and that parent does reside here, that's $62,000 I wasn't expecting. There's another student we had that was going to a place in Providence where the bill was supposed to be around $30,000. Now I'm seeing that come through from DCOAF, and they're putting $62,000 on that student. So I'm at $120,000 in tuitions for special ed, that I was at 40 a month ago.
Right.
So you say, well, what that, you know, and then we also had Blue Cross change the rates on us for our health care, and that was $36,000 more than we had anticipated for Blue Cross, which is, you know, it's Blue Cross. I mean, they, you know, sometimes you win the lottery with them, and other times you lose.
Right.
But those two small events in this community sways that budget huge. If that happened in Newport, it would be like, out of a $38 million budget, it's, you know, those kids come and go. But in this community, when you get that kind of swing that quick, all of a sudden you've got an issue like that, it's huge. And I think that's why I commend Little Compton for having had money set aside with the thought that there may be some issues that will come up that we haven't anticipated, that we now have to spend money on. And those little things all start to add up. A little of this, a little of that, something else goes, and it's expensive. So I'm just putting those are two examples.
Yeah,
And I'm hopeful that,
I'm sure.
Blue Cross I'm not gonna be able to change. I'm hopeful that DCOAF is wrong about that student.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go knocking on doors to see if we're right. But, you know, those are the kinds of things that will come up. And as this woman pointed out, if it is a kid in Little Compton, everybody's gonna know it is. Because they're all gonna know, where'd that money come from? And, oh, it's so-and-so's son and daughter. That's what's gonna happen, you know. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. I would
Chairman?
respond that that's why you have 220,000.
It's, I was hoping to provide a little bit of perspective though, because unfortunately Dr. Carr was kind of in a bit of an awkward position that, based on what's happened in front of our committee in the past, that you deserve to know, like, what we're trying to wrestle with here. Year to year, that surplus over this past year, the surplus grew 80 grand. A similar, more than that, a similar impassioned plea was made by Superintendent Crowley last year in front of this committee, begging for more money to be kept in the budget when we were ready to recommend a lower budget. We granted it to her, and the surplus grew. And the challenge so this is where I tend to break with some folks who fears, I don't want to sound like I'm slagging the guy, but I disagree with a lot of folks in the town that Mr. McNamee's approach to budgeting does not do favors for the school committee and the superintendent, because the school has the ability to grow surpluses very, very quickly without transparency to the public at large and to this committee to be able to predict when it's going to happen. And so if we try to make the decision to support an impassioned plea like that, thinking that it's necessary, and then fast forward 12 months and the school is carrying a budget that has a pretty healthy surplus, we look like, as a budget committee, we haven't managed our fiduciary responsibilities to the town to try to maintain as tight a budget as possible. And that all circles back to how that school budget is prepared. I feel very strongly that the school needs to have a surplus in hand at all times, because things like that are going to happen. If you get hit with one or two special education students and 3 kids in high school that were not budgeted for can totally burn down that 220,000 fast, like roughly, right? And then you have nothing for capital improvements. But at the same time, it's also really hard for us as a committee to be able to look at it and make a big picture recommendation to the town of how an increased budget request from the school for the single largest line item on the town budget needs to be increased. And there is a history of these surpluses continuing to grow. And I know I personally am wrestling with it, and I'm intending to agree with Craig and George that if you're carrying 220 grand and you need it, there's nothing to stop the school committee and whoever's the superintendent then and their financial manager from coming to the town in the next budget cycle and preparing a budget that's explicitly clear about the kind of surplus that you want to carry from year to year and asking the town to fund that, especially when you can demonstrate that you had to dip into it and you had to use it all. And I don't know that the town, even the more fiscally conservative portions of our community, I don't feel that they're so inhumane that they would not support that surplus if it's necessary to be fiscally responsible with how you run the business of the school.
Ms. Canaan?
Yes, I'll be brief. I was just listening to the numbers, and if I understand it correctly, if there's 220 in unexpended funds at present, and
That was as of June 30th, 15, in the audited financial statement. 263. 40 of which.
40 of which is gone, that's why I said 220,
Tom says.
roughly,
So it's 220.
220.
Yeah.
And 120 may in fact go to quite possible tuitions,
Yeah.
and 37 to
Like
Blue Cross Blue Shield,
any other day, question marks arise.
and 2 to Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's 117 from 220. And we would be down, am I right? I'm not the best mathematician here. 120 down, 220 down 117 is 30. So you're down to $100,000. So if there's another
Yeah.
student that needs
Yeah.
special ed, you could be down to 50,000.
Yeah, if it's
And then
getting snowy,
something
that's
else
very
happens.
late.
So to me, I understand if the unexpended funds is $1 million, that would seem excessive. And I don't think taxpayers would support it. But 200,000, given what we've just heard, are very possible expenses, and would bring it down to 100,000 before knowing for a full year what's ahead of you. That kind of unexpended funds, I think our taxpayers would support. And in fact, I think they'd be upset if there wasn't that much money. I think that holding a special town financial meeting would be a very cumbersome thing. And I think that we need to honor the administrator's opinion. If they say, look, we need 220, because otherwise we'd be irresponsible. We're putting ourselves up for a financial town meeting that costs money and, you know, is cumbersome, then I think we need to give it to them. And then you can examine it next year. And I personally wouldn't see the budget committee as irresponsible. In fact, I would respect them for saying 200,000 seems reasonable, after you just said. And if the operating budget is at 1%, the increase, they're not asking for a 5% increase. What is the increase? 1.3?
1.34 on the town side,
1.3.
1.4 on the total expenditure.
So, to me, it seems reasonable anyway, and in fact, irresponsible not to respect that 200,000 is a reasonable amount of money and a responsible amount of money to keep as a contingency fund.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say one thing, to pick up on to what you just said. Tom, I mean it sincerely. We could set the school budget every year in 10 minutes. All we have to do is agree on the surplus, if there is a surplus. Anything over that goes to pay the bond debt for the schools. If we can come to that, life will be easy for both of us.
Yeah. And I have no issue at all, okay?
So
I
let's
can't
just-
guarantee
let's work.
what future school committees are doing.
I understand that, but every year, the first thing we can do is discuss it, and if it makes sense, we'll go forward. Otherwise, we get into this, whatever. we
Yeah,
get into.
I guess maybe I'm, just from my perspective over the past several years, I mean, I think what our surplus is as a percentage of our overall budget, what is it, doing the math, and we're under 3%
Well,
in total, I think, but, you know, I didn't think it was excessive. There's been nothing put on paper in terms of where it should be. It's always sort of been a gentleman's discussion, for lack of a better word, and you know, it could be said, yeah, we think you're high, you know, I mean, so anyway, I mean, I have no problem with that, and again, if it comes back, when we know, you know, when is it we find out, December? When is it we get the auditor's report, when the audits are completed?
early December.
You know,
What is the final audit?
Late November, early. So I do want to say one thing. Craig mentioned comes some sort of agreement about prepaying bond debt on excess. I don't think we have the legal right to prepay our debt. So I'd have to look at the terms of the.
I don't mean prepay, but make a contribution to the town's contribution to pay the
I think
debt.
that would be okay.
I think
But
that
I
would be
don't think we
fine.
prepay the debt.
And it would take 10 minutes to do a school budget.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the other side, in terms of the staffing and whatnot, you know, those are discussions that, you know, and anyway, I agree with you. You make whatever recommendation you feel as a committee you need to make. I can't, not here to change your minds. Again, it comes up to the voters in the town, and you'll make your case, I'll make mine, and we'll see where it shakes out. So, thanks.
No. Joe,
I've got to commend
did you stand and?
Sure can. Joe Quinn. I've got to commend the three folks that say level fund. A $225,000 surplus is more than sufficient. We've heard the same story last year because the special ed card is pulled. You can pull it every year. The fact of the matter is there are adjustments that we made in the budget process as you go along. And yes, you heard, well, this might be a tight year and we hope to break even, but that's exactly what we were told the last 3 years, and there was 100,000 plus in each of those years. The fact of the matter is, your job is only to put the bottom number line, the bottom line number. And if you choose the level fund, you're talking about roughly $95,000. The fact of the matter is, the school committee then can look at staffing because there's going to be another huge decrease in numbers for next year. And it's pretty hard to argue that you've got at least 2 classes, maybe more, or 2 grades, and maybe more, that are going to have not classes of 9 and 10. It's not good for kids, in my view.
Thank you, I've been waving over here, yes, Polly Allen. So
Come so others can see you. I want you to hide over there.
this poll was in the way, I can't see everyone. So I'd just like to maybe remind or restate some of the things I've heard. That the school budget is the highest line item on our town budget. I think that's important. We're supporting our most important population in our town. I think that's fine. I would like to remind everyone what Mr. Arruda said last week or the week before about our program. He's been working on a program where the kids are in 2 classes per grade. He's been working on this for years. Time and money has been spent on this program. And to show for that, we have excellent grades here and in high school. If you start cutting our budget and we have to start combining classrooms, those grades are gonna suffer. And I can pretty much tell you that our special ed grades will go, costs will go up, because now you're gonna be combining a lot more kids in one classroom with special needs, with behavioral issues, kids don't get the attention they need, and special ed will go up. I think we've asked our professionals for their advice. They've given us great advice, they've backed it up, and I think you guys should support them.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Thank you.
I just want to say one thing, you know,
Yes, just,
Bob Howard, yeah.
thank you, sir.
So I'm bringing this to you because over the time, what I've learned, if I don't tell you this stuff and it happens, what happens is people say to me, you should have told me that. And that's why I'm telling you that, you know, there's issues with the special ed, there's issues with that. If those things don't come to fruition and there's a surplus, that's terrific. But what I've learned over time is if I don't bring this to your attention and say, these are the potential pitfalls, at the end of the day, if there's a deficit, I always hear from people, you should have told me this. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you know, I thought I could get around it. I thought I could make this up. I thought this would go with it. I've just learned to play it, put it out there, here's what it is, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You know, Mr. Quinn's right. You know, you hear that about special ed. Special ed is an issue that can go one way or the other. I went to a district one time, the special ed budget was $1 million out of district placements. I got it down to $250,000. I told the superintendent at the time, I'll never get any better than that. It's time for me to leave, because I've done everything I can do to squeeze that budget down and create programs for kids. You know, inevitably, that climbs back up. So, you know, I'm just saying to however it works out, here's some of the stuff that I'm seeing in the short time I've been here. They could be wild cards. They may play out perfect for us, and we duck this one, we duck that one, and money's great. Or it may turn out the other way, and then there's an issue. I just don't want you to sit here and say, why didn't you tell me that? I'm telling you what I know. I hope it doesn't turn out that way. And I will work hard if I stay here so it doesn't turn out that way. But I just want you to know what the issues are that are sitting in front of you. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. We will be moving forward now. At the end of this meeting, we'll be voting on the entire proposed budgets from each. And I think I see you in the back.
Yes, I'm here. What are you all doing?
Good. We've got 3 seats in the front if you'd like to come forward. And we had, Bill?
Yes.
We had received from Patrick, as of, the 1st of March,
Yes.
a request for $12,000 for the capital part of the account and $143,475 for the operating fund. With the what do you got on there? They look the same, but they're 2 different ones. And the income side was estimated at 133 for the coming fiscal year.
That's correct.
Recognizing that the month of June for 16 falls into the current year, and then
That's correct.
you pick up another
Lower
third
month.
month. Yeah, right. Now, also, we recognize that your program has had a resignation
Yes.
and then a new appointment by the council last Thursday. No,
Well, you had a resignation, I said yes.
you did have a resignation, but you did not appoint any new participant.
The charter calls for a vacancy
beach commission to be filled by the next highest vote getter in the most recent election, which was Donald Maderas. And so the council voted to appoint Don Maderas in conformance with that, subject to the entity that reviews that sort of thing is called the Board of Help.
Canvassers.
Canvassers, thank you. The Board of Canvassers certified that decision the next day, so in fact, Donald Maderas is now the other member, the
Yeah.
fifth member of the beach commission.
And you've just come from the meeting, so I realize that maybe this is a short time for you all to respond to some of the issues that we have raised.
Okay.
But you may well have discussed some of those. And,
Did you get the memo that I sent to your former chairman?
No.
Andrew and I are responsible as part of this board to deal with the beach commission. We have some questions on it. You may not be, I hope you'll be able to get to some of these, answer them tonight. We're just asking these because we just don't know. You're asking for increase of wages because of the minimum wage.
That's correct.
Now, do you expect your revenue is going to increase?
You know what, it's,
What is your revenue forecast for next year?
you know, it's hard to tell. When you have sunny days and rainy days, it can fluctuate. It's very hard to estimate. I mean, if I could say 3 months of sunny weather, I could give you an estimate, but I can't predict that.
All right, so what is this, I mean, I really would have, I tried to send you an email, I would prefer to take some of this offline.
Okay.
Because there's some basic things we don't understand.
Okay.
So what is the duration of your season? When is it open, when is it closed?
You have it open. Basically, Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Preset up time before that and after that. Also with the structure with payroll and stuff like that, everything is based on weather. Payroll will drop when weather is bad. You won't have staff on when weather is bad, stuff like that, so it will always.
So you schedule staff in the morning or based on
Basically,
what?
staff has a schedule. They call up in the morning at 8 o'clock. If it's raining, we tell them to stay home.
Staff. How do you allocate, what kind of a, say you have a sunny day, what kind of a crew do you have?
Basic structure, a lot of that is set up by the state, what they require. Because of the Drowning Prevention Act, it's required for a beach, you need to have a lifeguard staff on. With the physical facility that we guard, the South Shore is fully guarded. Goose Wing has 2 stands on it, it's partially guarded, but signs are set up. For a full staff, we're usually looking at 12 guards, 2 gate attendants for weekends. Weekdays, we're looking at single gate attendant and 8 guards.
I noticed in your budget you have overtime.
Yeah.
Well, like, you're only open from 9 to 5. How do you incur overtime?
That comes into effect mainly at the end of the season because we rely heavily on college students, and unfortunately colleges are going back earlier and earlier. Senior staff tends to step up and put in overtime to cover all the bases we need to maintain the beach till the end of the season.
Pretty much the last 3 weeks of August.
When was the last time you actually raised prices of the?
They were.
We did that about 15 years ago, and it didn't work. We lost revenue at that point. And we also switched that in the mid-season, and we did create more revenue coming back in. The people that go down there and pay those prices don't have a hell of a lot of money. And they come out of areas that they can't afford any more than that, and they're the ones that pay the dime on that beach. And as you see, the revenue that comes out of it goes back into the general fund, so, you know, it's a given thing.
Have you done a survey of other beaches recently?
Other local, state and local beaches and stuff like that, average price during weekdays is $10 per car. We're 13. Weekends, most of the beaches are 20, we're 15 on weekends. But again, we're comparing ourselves to, First, Second, Scarborough, where we have really no facilities down there at all. We don't have running water, power, concessions, that sort of thing. It is comparable to some of the other beaches, like Charleston, who are similar to us.
You looked at Horseneck?
Yeah, Horseneck floats all over the place. They keep coming up with these state mandates, and like 2 years ago, they dropped it to $7, and then within a month, they were back up to $20. So it's, again, the state, Massachusetts is all over the place on what they charge.
Okay. How are fire permits issued at night?
Okay, basically the way it's set up through the beach commission, there are 15 permits allowed, 5 of which are orchestrated to campers. There are 10 a night. There's a fee of $5 for that. Basically, it's a nominal fee just to offset paperwork and stuff like that.
Do you think that there's any advantage to consider opening it at night, or at least keeping the guards on there till 9 o'clock?
We did try a few, 2 years ago, staying open later till 6, and literally, as we said, people, we get down there at night. The problem is when we stayed open till 6, they literally would wait up the road for 2 hours till we were gone.
So why don't you stay open till 9?
Again, I don't think we'll have enough people there. When we started doing that, staying open till 6, we didn't get enough income to even pay for the people that we kept on, because we're gonna need to keep a gate person and 3 guards on minimum to maintain that. And again, like I said, we literally would have a line of cars up the road that would wait until we closed.
We lose them.
Yeah.
Well, it suggests to me that if you have a line of cars waiting for you to close, that at some point they're willing to pay to get in.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think they are. I don't think they will. I think what creates the amount of people down there is the fact that it doesn't cost anything.
So how do you get it? If there's no one down there, how do you get a fire permit?
They have to buy them before the beach closes, before 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And then is there anyone there that monitors the fires to make sure they're not extra fires or too many fires?
It's a combination of things between myself going back down there at night, police officers asking them to check on them, that sort of thing.
So the police regularly check the fires?
Yeah.
I have some, not a lot of experience, but I do have some experience budgeting for beaches, in the previous town that I was with. And we did keep the beaches open till 10 o'clock, and we had substantial, obviously the town people.
Where was this?
In Connecticut somewhere.
Again, one of the big issues is we're an all-natural beach down there. We have no facilities, there is no running water, there are no lights down there and stuff like that. I think if we geared towards staying open at night, we'd be creating problems. Again, we have a ton of people down there at night. It makes me nervous, to be honest with you. But again, if you start dealing with a situation where you're providing guards, and once the sun goes down, you can't guard water. It's, it just can't be done. And you're opening the town up to liability by basically saying.
So you're saying that there's reduced liability by having nobody there than by having somebody?
Unfortunately, yes. Yep. With having, if you notice when we close up, signs that we put up at the front, I go through a lot of things. I'm also a representative of the United States Lifeguarding Association. We deal with signage and things like that all the time. One of the signs that you'll notice that we put up whenever we close is danger unguarded area. And that goes up at 4 o'clock, and that prevents us from any legal issues from that point on.
The last question I have is on the internal controls that you have. How do you, how is the counting done so that at the end of the day, if you had, I don't know how you count the cars, but this is the people that are buying, that are the revenue people, that are paying for camping sites and all the various services, how do you account for the tickets?
Okay, we have ticket stubs, stuff like that.
Are they numbered?
Two parts that are numbered, that we go through. In fact, actually, I just happen to have one of the day book with me, so I can actually even show you. So basically, daily at the end of the day, a count is done with the tickets. And, you know, like we went through day pass, we went from 5:43 to 6:20 on that day, and stuff like that.
I see, so it's broken down by, and are these
All different
tickets?
Yes.
So they have a way of doing it?
Yep, and we have stubs that go back that we keep, you know, stuff like that, so if we ever need to be audited, stuff like that.
And that's done daily?
That's done daily, yeah.
I have a question. When was the last time you raised your camper rates?
Last year.
Was it last year?
Yep.
And they go real fast, don't they?
They go real fast.
And we did a basic figure on camper income between the $100 fee and the $25 a night. We got about $16,000 last year, so
But under, you know, we're only allowed 18 campers, but usually, you know, there's 16.
And you have the beach manager,
that's me.
that's you? And then, so it's you, and then as a rule, 12 guards on a good day?
I would be included in that rotation of 12.
Okay. And weekday is what?
Weekday we run 8, usually try to run about 8.
So one on the far end and 7.
Basically, the way we run is 3 on Goose Wing and 5 on South Shore. And again, with weather and stuff like that, that can be trimmed down. I mean, that, we basically look at, our rule of thumb is if we can't get enough to cover the staff that we have on, we trim our staff on. If we start seeing one car come in an hour, we tell half the people it's, who wants to go home.
Those are my questions, thank you.
You're gonna have good weather, right, Bill?
We're praying. Hopefully we don't have snow anymore.
No more snow.
Snow in July.
Okay,
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
thanks for your time. Good luck.
Craig, just for your information, year to date, they've had 206,000 in revenue. In the budget for next year, I bumped that up to 220, which would be the month of Memorial Day, month of June, basically. That's based on historical averages. So revenues, they should have somewhere around 220 this year.
He said they've had 206 year to date.
206 year to date, about 220 for the year, and they've expended so far about 163,000. So whatever the expenses are in the month of June, we'll offset that 220. So we're talking $40,000 to $50,000 process.
And that goes back to the general fund.
Yes, I think that's
I discussed the possibility of getting the library to present their budget. The treasurer could not join us, but I made an appointment with him for the next meeting. We did say that we wanted to take a look at the treasurer, because we had not discussed that budget, and here's one each of those.
Mr. Goff, could you please repeat that? What is that budget you're looking at?
I'm sorry?
Town treasurer.
Town treasurer.
Treasurer, yes.
Thank you.
And as you know, that the last time around in changing the ordinances, the town council is now responsible for recommending the salaries of elected participants. And the town council recommended in a letter back in January that the treasurer's compensation should be increased by 3%.
Well, I think in the light of the discussion of the 800,000 of uncollected taxes, it's very relevant here. And I'm not suggesting that the tax collector, treasurer has to go out physically, but there's no plan in place at all, which is where my disappointment is. Whether you hire somebody or there has to be a process, because 800,000 in uncollected taxes is a lot of money. And that's,
There's no plan.
and I know how hard it is to collect, Tom. You made it very clear that it's a tough thing, but we have no plan in place whatsoever to collect those taxes. And for that reason, I have a hard time recommending any kind of increase for the treasurer tax collector. So I'm recommending 0.
Tom, do you want to respond to that? Or,
No, I think, well, the taxes are about $800,000 when we go with that, approximately $300,000 in the current year, so I take that out. So you're talking about $500,000 in going for taxes. You're talking about, of that, $180,000 is penalties and fines, that type of thing. So you're talking in that, in true tax receivables of about $350,000. I think my personal perception is the fact that you cannot be treasurer, munis, inputter, munis reporting with a 2-person staff in that department and perform adequate collection duties. There's just, I've collected receivables all my life and you can't do it with a staff of 1. So it takes a back seat. There are several delinquent taxpayers that have plans, most of which are adhered to them. They're small payment plans. I'm proposing to the council as soon as I identify what, and my other concern is that the receivable amount that we show in the books is not an accurate number. And I think that has to do with the way we process property sales between the closing attorneys. I don't think we're calculating it correctly. I want to make sure what the receivables that we show on the books of $800,000 is an accurate figure. I don't remember the breakdown between tangible and motor vehicle. Motor vehicle should be a piece of cake, whatever that amount is, and I don't know off the top of my head what that amount is. There's nothing to do about collecting that. If somebody registers a car, they need to pay those taxes to DMV. If the car's been sold, we got to charge it off. So I'm asking our auditors when they come into June to look at the receivables and verify the fact that 800-some thousand is really doing it. In the role that Mary Jane plays in terms of tax collection, I think it's very difficult to do the work she does and focus on collection of taxes. So I guess that's my comment, because it's a full-time job to collect $800,000 worth of taxes. And unfortunately, it's a second priority, third priority, whatever. It's the end of the road. So that's.
Well, there needs to be a reason. I mean, she certainly can. There's no recommendation on how to go to get it. There's no plan in place.
Plan for what?
There's no plan. I mean, she can at least say, okay, here's how we're going to collect whatever it is.
Part of the issue in terms of collecting receivables, the only way, besides hard calling people and embarrassing them or send letters or whatever, is put a lien on the property. This town has never put a lien on any property that I'm aware of since inception, and it's hard to break that mold. So she's hamstrung a little bit in doing that. You know, the 3%, I think it's 3% that we recommended for her increase.
Right.
Not 2%, I think it was 2% that I heard.
no, it's
Which is basically 1% more than what the union contract calls for a municipal employee. So, there definitely could be more work on the collection of receivables, but with a two-person staff.
But who's responsible? Okay, let's start. How do we get a plan to focus in on the 1,000 taxes?
Well, I'm doing it outside the treasurer's office. I have a friend of mine, a personal attorney, that also has a collection agency. And what he does is he contracts with the state Department of Human Resources, puts liens on the property, and collects those liens. If they're elderly and exempt, then the Department of Human Affairs would pay the mortgage and then collect it once those people pass away or sell the house. My theory is we have to put a lien on the property. Once you have a lien on the property, then when the house is sold, be it 10, 15 years down the road, you can, if those people that can pay, we work up a collection plan. So I'm the one that's doing that. And it's just I want to make sure that the numbers we try to collect are accurate numbers.
Bob, do we have is the council behind this, or? I mean, there's a lot of tax money that's not collected. Can we hold a plan together, or are you responsible, or is it?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, I am responsible. It is been uncovered that this exists, this large uncollected amount. To Mr. Dunn's point, there are a number of questions as to whether it constitutes, we have $800,000 or we have $800,000 of which a portion is penalties, a portion is near-term collections within the fiscal year that we might expect someone would be 1 or 2 months late. So we're trying to get our arms around what the magnitude of the longer-term problem is. This has arisen as a result of our looking at the audit report and other inputs that we've done. And it is, as he says, not something we want to continue to live with. We want to put in place a process. To your point earlier, we don't have a process now. And so that's where Mr. Dunn is headed with his efforts. Should that be the tax collector's responsibility? Yes. Is it her responsibility? At the moment, it is overcome by other priorities. And I certainly understand the fact that we are one deep in most of the offices in the town hall. Therefore, if a person does A, that person can't do B. So we are looking at ways to make that different. This particular case, he's going to give us a recommendation, and the council will direct the treasurer as to how she ought to proceed.
Question about, let's say, just for argument's sake, the 400,000 of the actual, set the penalties aside. Is there an average aging value that you can assign to that? And is that growing, the aging, as far as how long it's been out there, or has it gotten to the point where it's sort of stabilized?
Probably 25 accounts that are in excess of $40,000. Most of them are probably less than 5,000. We have approximately 1,500 delinquent taxpayers. I think that's the number. Based on the tax rate of Road Compton, the yearly tax payments are relatively low. So most of your delinquent, and we have I don't know exactly, Jeff, what the number is, but I would say the average is less than 5,000. And if you age it out, it goes probably between $90,000 and $100,000 over 10 years. In my mind, if it's over 10 years and not on a payment plan, or rather than a payment plan, you should charge it off. So that's what I'm asking the auditor to look at. I think if you go through the current through 3 to 5 years, you're talking $400,000 of delinquent taxes. That goes tangible, goes motor vehicle and real estate. So tangible is another issue.
Yes.
I don't know off the top of my head tonight what the tangible portion is, but it's probably between $100,000 and $200,000 of that $800,000. And that's a difficult thing to collect because you can't put liens. You can put blanket liens on the UCC filings and things like that, but you're never going to get 5 cents on the dollar for that.
Yeah,
So,
I just wonder, is she, because a year or 2 years ago, the uncollected taxes were even worse. And she made progress. But it
maybe
is.
higher the last couple of years.
Yes.
It's been between $500,000 and $600,000. We collect on average 99.5% of our receivables, of our tax receivables, which is pretty high. We went for the bond rating AAA, that was one of the higher rates that we had. So we do collect 99.5%. So our uncollected taxes based on a levy is about 0.5% a year.
However, that includes some current year as well as prior years to make up the.
Right, includes
Yeah.
current year's taxes plus prior years collected during the current year, plus 60 days worth of receivables. So from that standpoint, we're better off than a lot of municipalities.
Yeah.
Is your discussion regarding uncollected taxes and the in-depthness with which you're getting into this related to whether you're gonna give her a raise?
Yes.
Yes, whether she's doing her job or not.
The council's recommended to us.
The council makes a recommendation for some of us are elected and some of us are appointed, so for the elected participants, there had been a responsibility of the budget committee, but that was changed in the last ordinance go around, so that the council was making recommendations with respect to elected positions, clerk, treasurer, etc.
Well, given that there's some definite progress, I still think we should indicate some level of dissatisfaction, so I'll move it to 2%.
So that 2% is required, right?
No.
That's
No.
not right.
If I can, let me bring up something else. For the last, 2-3 years, I guess, the last budget committee voted to put, I can't remember exactly, $1,000 a year increase based on if you're elected.
Right.
And then last year we changed that to 2%, so you really ought to look at the value of that position as opposed to a percentage increase. So we're kind of making an adjustment for those $1,000 that we gave her for 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was. 3 election cycles, they got $1,000, so every 2 years they got $1,000. So figure out what that is in terms of a percentage increase, it's not 2%. So I'm gonna say a $40,000 salary, and if you get $1,000 every 2 years, that's $500 a year. So that's one of the reasons personally I took that into account. Last year we switched that and gave her 2%. But they were under a thing for, I think, at least 2 elections. They got $1,000 each election. It was $500 a year every 2 years, or $500 a year.
So are you saying the 2% is in line or not in line?
I'm saying, I think I'd recommend the 3% that we recommended for them.
I know the council gave us these numbers, but I have a problem with so much of uncollected taxes. And we've talked about this for a couple of years now. And there's no plan, there still isn't a plan. And I said the same thing to Tom, we need a plan. So, I mean.
I can give you a plan tomorrow. I have a memo of what my plan is. I don't know,
It's gotta go before the council.
I'm sorry?
Does it have to go before the council or straight to the treasurer?
The actual official plan, if I do what I want to do, it's got to go in front of the council. I can't lien property without going in front of the council. But the plan is, number one, to have the auditors come in and verify the fact the tax receivables are on our books, the $800,000 are accurate, that they're real validated receivable to verify. Next, I want to hire this company, the title company, it does this work, it's the normal course of business. And we have to go slow, because, and probably notify all the taxpayers with a letter, saying this is what we're gonna do. That's all gotta go to the council first. So there is a plan, I mean, there's payment plans in place on certain individuals or property owners. Not every one. And some, to be honest with you, are just, unless you put a lien on the property, there's no point in going to collect. It'll cost you more to collect than it will what you're gonna reap in payments.
But how do we give a raise to her when there, at this point, there's no plan, and she hasn't taken it upon herself to, well, I'm saying she could have come to the council and said, I need help. I need help to collect.
Okay.
And she hasn't done it.
Correct, but she also collects 99.5% of her receivables.
I understand that, but that's counting the past years too. I understand. That's past years too. So, I mean, we're looking at $800,000 sitting out there, which we've looked at, and I won't be ready to cut $88,000 out of their budget. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. I'll just defer comment until we get through with the whole budget,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah. Tom?
It sounds as though that there is a plan, by listening to what Tom was having to say, that there's been discussions about what they're gonna do to potentially collect this money. So to sit back and say that there is no plan, I think is not correct. I don't know how often you all talk to each other. I don't know how often you go in and sit down and talk with him about account receivable or $800,000. Because a lot of what he's conveying today, I would have thought might be known by some of you.
It is.
Okay, well, but it seems as though that there's some things coming out of the gates here for the first time.
We've asked for a plan. We've asked for a plan. This is not the first year. It says, we'd like to collect this. We've had many discussions like this.
That, to be honest, that discussion has been with me, it hasn't been with Mary Jane.
You're right.
There's been no request to the treasurer's office to come up with a plan for collection. So I've done this based on my knowledge of the audit, based on my knowledge of the operation of the treasurer's office. And I'm the one that came up with a plan. Because I've identified, I mean, it is a serious number. But that number has been there since I've been with the town, which is 8 years, almost 8 years. It's approved, it's waived that work, we collected $300,000 extra a couple of years ago. So, and she's not a professional collector, that's part of her job responsibility, so that's, yeah, I presume it's my responsibility to train her to collect, but she doesn't have the time to do it. She should be more aggressive.
And if she can't do it, go to the council and say, I need help. That's part of her job.
You've read the findings from
I
the
know
audit.
that. I've read the audit report. I know. It's getting better, but there were a lot of problems last few years in the audit report about the treasurer's office.
Just primarily the organization of it.
Yeah.
We're limited to 2 people,
I understand that.
so.
Excuse me.
Yes, Ms. Canaan.
It seems to me that it would be unfair to punish the treasurer in that the town council president and this gentleman here, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Tom Dunn.
Tom Dunn, who oversee the town administration, are saying that it hasn't been Mary Jane's job to do collections, and that there have been priorities greater than tax collection that have been agreed upon that she should do. And if you have dispatched...
She's the town treasurer and tax collector. That's her office.
Yet I hear the town council president and Mr. Dunn say that there aren't enough people to do everything on, I guess, to both tax collect and
But it's
be
her
a
office.
treasurer.
It's her office. That she does not have the number of people that she needs. That you just don't go. You don't say, "Oh, I'm not going to collect it. I can't get it all done." You have to go to the town and say, "I need help."
Well, it seems that the town and she have talked, and Mr. Dunn and Mr. Mushin are now saying, we will take on that responsibility, and we are coming up with a plan, and we will inform you, Mary Jane. It seems punitive to Mary Jane when their arrangement is that it hasn't been her responsibility.
I guess my only comment would be this, George, is that job is to collect taxes. So, to that tune, she has done that. She is collecting taxes, she's processing tax receipt. She handles the ag trust cash account, she handles the town cash account. To make a focus and collect 90% of delinquent taxes, number one, she doesn't know how to do it. Okay, I don't think she's ever been given the training to do it. She does what she can, she calls, she makes payment plans, but she has no, there's not any enforcement action she can take. Yes, she can go to the council and request we do that. If she does, she can go request and put liens on property. The bottom line is, I think it's probably one of her least, her least priorities in what she does, because most of the time she's working on processing payments and all that stuff on things. So from that standpoint, you're correct. But I think it's my role to sit down with her and explain this to her. Whether we can hire more people, that's not in the budget.
Right.
I mean, you don't give me enough money to spend on the budget, so it's something that we're working on. It takes time. So.
Come to that when we go through the preliminary vote. The next item on the agenda is to take a look at how the change in values of the assessed properties in the town would affect the tax rate and budget month numbers. The listing of all of the strokes is from the flyer that was sent out a couple of weeks ago and shows the 2016 levy and budgets and the proposed 17, or the requested rather, 17 budget for both revenue and expenses. And the other page shows you, given the real property revaluations which have just been completed, and also the taxable vehicles and the intangibles. And it shows you what the tax levy would be with a tax rate to at least equal and be slightly above the levy for taxes. That is, in order to balance the requested budget, we would need to collect $11,520,000 really, $11,520 for revenue from taxes. That, to accomplish that, because of the new values in town and the fact that people have bought a bunch of new cars and the tangibles are about the same as prior year, the tax rate would be about $5.62. Now that's by no means a final rate because it takes the town meeting's vote to actually determine what the rate would be. But the real property values were increased by about 5% during this past revaluation. And therefore, the resulting tax rate is decreased by a small amount, just because to accomplish the rate is really the levy divided by the taxable property. After any exemptions and deductions. And this is always a matter of some question and concern as we go forward. It's merely a calculation. It doesn't really, it can be changed a little bit here and there. It obviously would be changed if we change some of the expenditures. We expect that the income stream is pretty accurate so far, and so that the net difference is really the taxes to be collected. Do you have any questions about that?
Hey, Bob, I do.
Yeah,
On that 562,
right.
it gives you about,
You must have done the same calculation.
I did. It comes up to 11,529,000, which is 3.04%.
11,529,000,
Right.
right?
We can't go any lower than 562 because you have to go up 3 places. So 562 is it, if you want to come up with 11
Well,
million.
we could go down by a penny, which is about 18,000 of collection,
But you don't, I won't argue with that.
right?
You can't go 18,000, but,
Yeah.
okay, 562.
Yeah,
And then the question comes, what about future abatements that haven't taken place, hearings?
right.
And we ought to put some sort, at least in my opinion, we ought to put
Well,
some sort of reserve in that because.
Yeah. The 562 creates a net levy of 11,529,
Right.
right? So that's about 10,000 over the,
Over my 519.
over the 11,519 previously estimated.
Yep.
Now, that 519 could change based on the final recommendations of the committee.
Yeah, good,
They tend to go down, right? Or
Yeah.
they rarely go up, right?
Well, the requests, between the requests and the actual recommendations is usually, the recommendations go down, yeah.
I spoke to Denise today, and what she told me was that your average abatements after the certified tax roll, which
Yeah.
is this 4 million, 11 million, whatever it is.
Was about
529 is about $10,000.
about 10,000 of taxes,
And then we have the Secana Point Club, which may appeal their valuation.
it's the
owners
the
of
marina, not the
the
point
marinas
club.
itself.
The marina.
So they may appeal, there may
Yeah.
be legal costs involved in that.
Could be,
So I'm just saying we ought to think about setting up some sort of reserve of that 11,529,000 because I think that's probably a little bit too low.
could
In
be.
order to meet our expenditures that we budgeted,
Yeah.
so that's my only.
Certainly, by the time we get to the town meeting, we've got another 50 days here to wrestle with it.
Okay.
But that, yes, I think that's a valid question,
Okay.
and one that could be easily taken into account.
That's the same argument as the tax collection ratio, you know,
Yeah,
it's like
it's the same.
99.5. We don't make, we assume we're gonna get 100% of our taxes, which I think is wrong.
Right.
So it's the same argument.
I'm just trying to keep from going into the general fund for any shortfalls, which is what would happen if we budget
Yes.
100% of expenses.
Right.
Yeah, I don't, never like that.
I think that's, I agree, Tom, that's a valid point.
What's the current rate?
Any other questions on that
What's
one?
our current rate
Current rate.
on real property?
577, 575, excuse me. That's on all residential and commercial. Town capital plan. We had passed that around and reviewed that. Anybody need a copy? No, it hasn't changed. Yeah, okay. Tom, you've been pretty involved in this. Do you want to comment at all about these items, or as to whether the annual appropriation is sufficient, or are there any surprises that
There aren't any
have come up in
surprises.
the last day or two?
There's not any surprises that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I found out today we have to either buy or rent a couple of, what do you call them, dumpsters, I guess. Bottle and cans contain.
Other comments? Jeff? Andy?
Just a couple of general comments.
Yeah.
The ambulance reimbursement fund and the fund for the police. Yeah, they're both beginning to wind down, so, you know, the funds, the town's gonna have to fund more and more. And I think that if there's one thing I'd like to see us work on next year is really beginning to focus in on the capital plan and actually begin to, there's some things that we need to do as from a town perspective. So I would expect that we will beef this up a little bit going forward.
Okay. Any other comments? All set with that? Which brings us to the preliminary vote on proposed on the requested budget, and we are going to put in our recommendations. Yeah, there.
You'll have to forgive me, I have a question about the police and fire budgets, but I wasn't here for that meeting.
We pretty much,
Approved.
we pretty much approved
Approved
as submitted. Again, and both will have, the fire department will have a small surplus, police department will have a larger surplus. Those funds go back to the town, anything over, and I went through them both, and they're both very reasonable.
I know last year there was the fuels,
Right.
and they've adjusted, but they
Fuel
haven't.
budget's went down 37%. The only, I have a modification on number 20. It should
Number
be-
20?
Yeah, it's level, should be level funding, so it's 6842094. That's my recommendation, we have to vote on it.
Could you please tell us what that refers to, that
but-
line?
School department,
That would be a change from the request of 97,800.
Well, why don't we vote on that first and then we can change the number?
Okay, we would move, it has been moved that we adjust that request downward to 6842,094.
Can I just raise a question?
And there's this
Where do you get that?
second on that.
Where do you get that number from?
From this sheet,
Last
last
year's request.
Yeah, but it's, if I understand your motion is to approve the town's portion,
Portion of
which
it.
last
So we're
year,
gonna take out the statement.
it comes, that total appropriated value you want, I think you want, is 6,854,028. So if you take the 6,854,028 and subtract the education aid above, which is 412,888, that'll come up to the same town portion, of 6,432,something, 431, which is what our town portion was last year.
Okay.
So if you take our town portion last year and add the education aid to it, plus the Newport County Regional Special Ed Program of 10, you add those two together and tag that to the 6,431,000 or whatever the number was, I don't have it in front of me. I think that number comes to 6,854,028. That's no increase in the town's portion. I don't have a calculator, I did it by hand, so I may be wrong, but. If you take last year's portion, town portion, add the 412,888, which is, I made a typo on my sheet, and then add $10,000 to that, which is your Newport County Regional Ed. So that would come up to 422,888. Add that to the 6,431,000, and you come up with 6,854,028.
Yeah.
And we can vote it subject to final confirmation by you.
Okay, that's fine.
We're just talking about town appropriation, right? This sheet here,
It's total.
That's the total, that's everything in the school. We're going to go to the town share.
right, okay.
The town share
That should even be there that way then.
431, 140.
That 6,939,894 shouldn't be represented on this sheet that way then.
That's the total.
Because that's a total budget for the school, including the state aid and the.
State is in the market.
It comes out to the $85,000 reduction,
Okay.
not the 97 that you show on the sheet here.
Okay. And there was a second for that.
You want to make your motion again, Craig, please?
I will move that the school budget on item number 20 be 6,824,025, subject to final confirmation by Mr. Duffy.
Town's portion. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
I mean, we've talked about this, we talked about it earlier. We heard input from it, and so, I mean, I disagree with level funding, that's my opinion, but.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? May we go back to number 6 then? I would approve 5,000. Second,
I'm recommending we vote 6 through 11 as is.
6 through 11 as it stands.
Do you want to?
Second on that?
Just so that you know, the line items that we're talking about here, 6 through 11, are the Wellness Center, East Bay Community Action, the Prevention Coalition, Eastern Rhode Island Conservation, Senior Citizen Services, and Stay at Home Incorporated. The requested budget amounts were moving and possibly voting on to recommend it as requested. So,
So I
We
move
have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 12 is the police department,
I will move it.
$1,015,968.
Second.
You recommend it? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Drug forfeiture funds, 30,000.
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Public safety complex, 60,780.
I'll move it.
Moved.
Second.
Second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fire department, 763,143.
I recommend
Proposed.
we do the ambulance with it. It's one and the same. Fire and ambulance reimbursement. Let's do it
Right.
together.
And the ambulance reimbursement.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Texera. Requested, recommended 0.
I'll move that.
Moved, second,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Carraro. Leonard Carraro. 18,915.
I'll move it.
No change.
No change.
Second?
Here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Self-service director,
Social service.
social service, excuse me. 5,572.
I'll move it.
I'll second that.
Moved, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bonded debt, 855,025.
I'll move it.
In second,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Town clerk, 141,090. Moved.
Second.
Is there a second? I didn't hear a second, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Board of Canvassers, $7,000.
Move it.
Moved, second,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Budget Committee, 5,000. All in favor? I move that.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The treasurer,
That's just to print our report, you know that, right? It'll be fixed.
Seems kinda high.
It'll be fixed.
Seems like we should vote.
No, the school, well,
Schools
the
combined.
schools in our report.
Yeah,
so.
it's combined.
You got a chance to vote on
Treasurer. Do we want to adjust the treasurer to 2%?
Could we discuss that real quick? I'm
Yes.
sorry. While I share the concern of the committee regarding the collections, I have two concerns about not recommending the 3% increase. One is because the tax collector may not have the tools that she needs. The one critical tool she needs in order to try to close that gap on those uncollected taxes is the lien. And she can't just unilaterally use it. And I'm not sure that she can get it, and while I agree, it doesn't look like any action, proactive or otherwise, has been made from her office to go to the town council or anyone else to get that tool. But if you look at just how much money she is collecting on an annual basis and compare that with what the revenue, what the budget is for that office, I mean, it's less than 1%. Someone who's being paid less than $50,000 is responsible for over $11 million in collections. That's a pretty serious amount of money that is still coming in. And it's also incumbent upon our committee, if we're that serious about it, to communicate directly to our office that something needs to be done. And I know we've talked about it in committee a lot. I all know that we've communicated it the way it needs to be to show how serious of a problem it is. And it's not just the treasurer who's elected who is potentially impacted by the lack of the increase in budget for that office. It's also the clerk too, and that's not an elected position, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to move that we keep, well, I'll leave it to discussion. I'm sorry, those are my comments.
Well, how about moving something?
I'd like to move that the line item as requested, 103, 195 for the treasurer be forwarded with approval from this committee.
I'll second that.
A second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that one? All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Opposed.
All opposed.
2 opposed. 3 in favor, it passes. Assessment, $64,993.
I'll move it.
Second, I have to, I
Refuse.
cannot vote on this
Second.
item, I'm
I'm second.
subject to it. All those in favor?
Aye.
1 abstain, 1
Aye. Sorry.
not voting. Revaluation reserve, 20,000.
I'll move that.
This is for the funding of the every 3 years revaluation process, which will, the next time around will be 2018. And this is part of that cost that the town will bear.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Wastewater treatment, another bonded debt,
Yes.
right?
I'll move it.
66,700. Moved, seconded, in favor.
Aye.
Records for the town clerk, $1,000.
Move it.
Second, in favor.
Aye.
Capital account, 100,000. We just reviewed the capital account. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Town administrator, 72,783.
I'll move it.
Second.
Second, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Town council, 20,500. In favor?
Move it.
Move. Seconded?
Second.
In favor? Aye. Building and zoning, 55,869. Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Building inspectors, 19,900.
Move it.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Advisory board, 16,970.
Move it.
Moved. Seconded.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The beach commission, 143,475.
I'd like to see if we have one more time.
Oh, yeah, this is
I
really.
want
a
to
preliminary.
defer this if I may, Mr. Chairman,
All right.
because I want to discuss, but based on what I'm sure Andrew and I want to go through the numbers.
Good. Thank you. However, the beach capital account,
We will.
12,000.
Yes.
Would you move that? And second,
Just to explain, that's not the beach capital account, that's the parking lot fund.
Parking lot.
parking, well, it's
That's
sort of a
not-
capital.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's not.
They have a separate capital sub-account as part of their operating budget. This is strictly the beach parking lot repair. It's not a capital account, so.
So, but you don't include it in this, do you?
Yes.
Or is it at the
And that
bottom?
143
Oh, okay.
is the
Yeah.
beach capital account.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Health benefits, 740,032 plus 143.
173.
173. It's seven, the total is 740,32. That includes
So that's,
both active and retirees.
so that's 740 includes the 173?
Correct.
Tom, what's the 173?
Yeah, 566
173
plus
is for
173.
retirees.
Okay.
That's our OPEB contribution.
Yeah. Right. All those in, I'd move that total. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
The town contribution to social security, 189,093.
Second.
We're all in favor.
Aye.
Insurance, 115,000. Second,
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Legal expense, 65,040.
Move it.
Second, in favor?
Aye.
Miscellaneous,
40,000.
40,000 in favor? Aye. Town hall, 32,491.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Contribution to the pension fund, 434,295.
I'll move it.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The transfer fund, that's the station, right.
I'll move that.
169,806. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public Works, 199,118.
I'll move it.
Moved, second, in favor?
Aye.
Highway Fund, $223,850. Moved, seconded,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Tree warden, 22,000. Move that. Second. Anybody a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Computer services, 53,000. Move that. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Town shares of the audit, 22,000. Move that. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Library, 153,900. Table. Okay. Street lights, probate judge, meeting hall, and recreation. How about those all together as presented? 2,100, 5,208, 6,150, recreation 28,500.
I'll move it.
All moved, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Subject to the two items that have been tabled, that, and the one last final calculation for the school, we would
And it takes care of.
total those. Preliminary vote. Does the public have any further comments? You're all patiently waiting.
No, I just have a quick question, that's all.
Who are-
Diane McGregor. Diane McGregor. And my quick question is just on 33, that's probably something I should know, but I don't, so I figured I'd ask. It was raised by $29,113, the town administrator. Is that a change in duties from hard to full, I'm guessing, or
Yes,
something?
responsibilities and everything.
Okay, that's what I was guessing, but if anyone asks, now I can tell them that I
I
know.
went from, my position.
That it is, yeah, and you do a wonderful job.
Town business manager,
What?
town business manager to
Yeah.
town administrator,
Yeah, so you'll be full-time.
yes.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes.
I'm not a resident, but I'm Jean Dunn, I'm president of the Lowell Compton Teachers Association.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I don't hear.
Jean
very
Dunn.
well.
Lowell Compton Teachers Association.
Yes.
I just was curious, what's the computer line item that you had for?
That's for the town portion of all software and a portion of the employee who's really, 80% in the school and 20% in the town.
No, we don't have an agreement with, the town or the school computer person. That really is hardware and software. That's all it is.
If I could address your other question, right now, the Public Works Director works for the school a portion of his work week, and the IT Director works for the town portion of his work week. At this point, we have called that even. We're evaluating whether that is in fact even, but we don't exchange funds between the two entities in order to compensate for each other. Rather, we exchange the duties. So at least for now, the Public Works Director is the building manager, the facility manager of the school building, and the IT Director is responsible for Public Safety Complex and Town Hall computer hardware and software.
I have a boring numbers question. After the reevaluations, what do you think the percentage of properties that either stayed the same or went down in town? Like roughly?
Well, I should know that exactly, but I don't.
Could you ballpark it?
All of the land in the town was increased by about 10%. All of the defined buildable lots, let's say, went up by 10%. And so that, and there is more value in land in Little Compton by a substantial amount than in improvements, that is, houses and buildings. So the land made a fairly, not a big jump, but certainly a move up. If you're thinking then about, I think your question is land and buildings that maybe stayed the same by plat and lot.
Yeah, or basically how many taxpayers' taxes are actually gonna go up as a result of the revaluation?
How many taxpayers?
Individual
bills
taxpayers, bills are gonna go up,
will go up.
or the inverse being how many are gonna stay the same or go down? And if it's 60, 70, 80,
I wouldn't
you wouldn't?
guess on that. Obviously, some are gonna go up and a few will go down.
Okay, so if every penny that we raise taxes is $18,000, right? That's what you said earlier.
18 to 20,000.
We'll call it 18.
Yeah,
And how many times does 18 go into 88? My math kid over here.
18, 20, yeah.
5 times.
About
5 times. Okay, so that's 5 cents. And we've gone from 5.79 down to 5.62, is that what you said? For the,
yeah,
For
well,
the-
that's only based on
That's a
the
big-
request.
on-
That's not based on anything.
that was based on
Going into the
was that based on the request before you took the 88,000 out?
Yes. Yes.
So everybody's taxes are gonna go down 13 cents a thousand.
No, not necessarily.
Well, okay, help me out with it then. What am I not getting? I know there are, you said land went up, but you said houses didn't go up.
The tax rate will probably go down a little bit. Depends on how all this fits together at the town meeting. And to start quoting rates is
But-
improper.
Okay, so but to paint with a broad brush, the tax rates as a function of evaluations, people who actually own homes, not landowners with undeveloped lots.
Yeah.
Most likely, the tax rate's gonna go down anyways. But we can't come up with that 5 cents a thousand to fund the school in a proper fashion. Okay, thank you.
Joe?
Just a quick one
Yeah.
on the beach. I go in August for a week, and many times I've camped at where I go. And by the way, it's a safari field. There is a fire pit. There is a picnic table, and it overlooks not the Atlantic Ocean and other things. It actually overlooks 2 roads. And for the pleasure of being there, it's $30 a night. And so I'm having a hard time understanding when someone outside of this town can come in for $25 a night with their camera and walk, I'll say 60 feet, and drop into the Atlantic Ocean and be able to see the Elizabethan chain, and on a real clear day, Gay Head. I mean, it's just incredible to me. And because those are spots that cars could be parked, or maybe we want to allow non-residents to come in and use the use part of our parking lot, but they sure ought to pay more The other thing is some of them are being allowed to bring in more than one car, or they're bringing in more than one car. And that's just ridiculous, because it's taking up even more space. Something worth looking at from a standpoint of, are we getting our best value of our parking lot, et cetera. That's all, just a thought.
That's why we tabled it, Joe.
Say again?
Sorry.
That's why we tabled that issue.
Okay.
Andrew and I are gonna work on it,
Okay.
and, you know, we'll do our best to see what we can do in cooperation with the beach commission. And they're, you know, they just had a turnover, so they're new to the game.
But you go to any of the private campgrounds, trust me, you're not paying $25 a night. And you don't have anything near what we have down there.
Especially beach fires at night and all that.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. Canane.
Okay, I want to say that the reason I really came tonight, well, first of all, I want to thank you all for your service, your public service. I think it's wonderful. And I thank you for being so flexible and allowing public input earlier and throughout. One of the reasons I came, though, is when I had heard that tonight's meeting was changed. And I understand you tried to accommodate a member's schedule, and it is important to have 5 people. But I think of this as a contract with the residents of Little Compton. And one of these 4 opportunities for the public to be part of the meetings has been changed. And I would hope that in the future that this is avoided, because I think most people don't know that that meeting has changed. And they have lost, you know, there will be people who have lost an opportunity to come and speak on behalf of whatever it was that they wanted to come. So I hope in the future an effort is made to keep to these dates no matter what.
Remember, this is our preliminary vote, so.
I know, but whatever,
I know.
there's 1 of 4 opportunities.
But
So I
thank
hope.
you for your comment.
Okay, thank you.
Put it in the record.
Okay, thank you.
Hi,
Yes.
Cheryl Kelly. I concur.
Would you rise?
Oh,
please?
well, not everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess all women have to rise. I concur. If you do change it, you should advertise it and let people know. Get it out there, not just Secretary of State. I concur with Joe, because when I go to other beaches, we're a deal. I want to speak to the sharing of personnel in the town, because we get our maintenance from the
Who's we?
business, the school. The school gets maintenance from the building inspector, and the town hall and the police and fire get computer service from the computer man from school. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay, do we have a balance in time on that?
Are you asking me?
No, she is.
I'm asking. I'm just talking about that word.
I don't mean to be ridiculous. I will answer questions posed, but if you'd like me to answer a question, I will.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to get into a debate.
No, I'm trying to figure out how that works.
Right now, we do exchange it evenly. There is a question as to whether it is an even change of an even number of hours, so we're looking into that. I think it probably is pretty close.
Okay, how about dollars? Because the pay scale of one, I think, is substantially higher than the other. And when those salaries were listed in the town, I think the computer guy was 2nd or 3rd highest paid in the town, and he was pretty high up there.
Well, yeah,
So the
that's
school
here.
department's paying
In the report.
that really high salary for usage in the police and fire and the town hall, is that correct?
We are exchanging his time,
Yep.
Paul's time,
Mm-hmm.
for Bill's time.
Yes, but they're
Bill's
paid.
time is less than Paul's time on an hourly basis.
Whose is?
Bill's time is
Yes.
less than Paul's time is on an hourly basis.
Okay,
What we're trying to do is balance the time. Right now, we're balancing time. I don't think we think so much as dollars
okay.
or more time.
Because so the time is balanced, but that would make the dollars skewed, right? Or you're trying to balance the
Correct.
dollars with
School-
time?
If we did it dollar to dollar, I would think the school would owe the town money.
You think so?
I
The
think so.
school would own,
We don't know that for sure.
Okay.
Bill's in charge of the school, he runs the program, he spends a lot of time down there, he does a lot of monitoring of the systems and all the problems they've had. Paul primarily spends 1 or 2 days a week with the town, primarily the public safety complex, maybe a day or two, or as needed for the town. So it's difficult to figure that out right now, but we allow it to be an even swap in terms of time, so we don't charge the school doesn't charge us, there's no exchange of funds, as Bob said.
All right, I just want to know that we're.
George, did you find a salary in there? Because I do remember looking at that last
Yeah,
year.
there was some, yeah.
There was salary, and I computed that I was up in the 90s versus Bill, which is a lot lower.
Oh, yeah, no. The salary of the IT director was 95,045.
Which the school is paying, right?
Yes.
And the maintenance or the
Building
building
official
inspector.
was 51,920.
So there's a $40,000 difference there, that one comes on the school side and one is on the town side.
That's not the total salary.
That's not the total salary.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot of
The
other,
question is well posed.
Right.
I believe it is approximately even in dollar value. That's what we're investigating, whether it's true or not. The computer official spends 1 day a week, Tuesday, at the town hall and the public safety complex. So 20% of his time is spent at those places. It is often superseded by the need to do some specific thing at the school for an hour or two. We're trying to get a handle on how many hours per week he works at the town. And I have a good sense of how many hours a week the building official / director of public works spends at the school. We are attempting to figure out whether that's an even swap and whether we should build into one of the other budgets the ability to pay for that. It's a rather minor item in the overall scheme of things. It seems to be mutually effective because it takes people that are working for both parts of the town and has them work for another part of the town.
Right.
So that's the reason for it.
there's the answer. It's in process as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you for joining.